Welcome to Creepy Loop. Join us for scary stories, mysterious creatures, and spooky adventures. Hit subscribe for thrills and mysteries. Let's dive into the unknown together. I drove for a few hours to get to this cool place. When I turned off the big road onto a smaller one, I felt like I was going to be all by myself. I really like hiking, but the trails I usually go to are getting too crowded. So, this time, I chose a trail I heard a little about but didn't know much. It was going to take me to a wild place with nothing around for miles. It's part of a national park, but not many people know about it because it's far away and only reachable by a road that doesn't really go anywhere. My plan was to go into the wild, camp out under the stars, and enjoy the beautiful night sky. I live in a desert state, and I thought I'd see some amazing constellations since there wouldn't be any clouds, and it was supposed to be a night without the moon. I've already walked on the popular trails in the area, so I wanted to try something more adventurous this time. I would camp overnight and come back in the morning. The empty road confirmed that not many people come this far. It sounded like a good opportunity to relax and take a break from everything. Finally, I arrived at the place and turned off the paved road onto a gravel parking area. The tires made a crunchy sound as I slowed down. It wasn't really a proper parking lot, just a rough area next to the big road with a sign saying I was entering the national park. There was almost no one there, just one other car parked. I got out of my car, stretched, and saw the small sign showing the start of the trail. Then, I looked again at the other car. The other car looked really old, like it had been there for a super long time. All four tires were flat, but they didn't seem to have holes in them. The whole car was covered in dust. I looked at my car, and it was a bit dusty too, but this one was way dirtier. The car didn't have any broken windows, and it didn't seem like someone stole it and left it there. It didn't have any damage at all. I thought it must have been there for a long time. I wondered why nobody from the park service towed it away. I decided I would call them when I got home. I opened the back door of my car and took out my backpack, hat, and rifle. I had to think a lot about whether to bring the rifle because it's heavy, and I probably wouldn't need it. But the last time I went hiking overnight, I had a scary encounter with a coyote. I wished I had something more than rocks to protect myself. I thought since it was a small .22 caliber rifle, it wouldn't be too heavy. I packed it in a light soft case that could fit next to my backpack. I also got my sunscreen from my backpack and put some on my arms and neck. Then, I turned off my phone. I called my sister before I left to tell her my plans, and put it, along with my keys, away. I put on my backpack, shouldered my things, and started walking up the trail. After walking just a short distance, maybe a couple of 100 yards, I stopped and sniffed the air. There was a little breeze, and with it, a strange smell. I crinkled my nose because it was a really bad smell, like something had died. "Ew, smells awful," I said quietly to myself. The breeze went away, and the smell went away with it. "Phew," I said, starting to walk again and going a bit faster. I didn't see any buzzards around, but if there was something dead nearby, I didn't want to be close to it if the wind came back. The rest of the hike was pretty normal. I won't tell you all the little details, but the trail was nice, going through the desert shrubland. After a few hours, I was breathing hard because I reached a slightly hilly part of the trail. When I got to the top, I saw that the land flattened out into a wide plateau. I looked at the sun and saw it was mid-afternoon. I thought this was a good spot to set up camp for the night. I walked a bit more before stepping off the trail and finding a flat area where the bushes were cleared away. There were some leftovers from a campfire in the middle, just a few bits of charcoal and some burnt ground. I nodded to myself, took off my backpack and rifle case, and put them on the ground near the old campfire. I spent more than an hour gathering firewood and another half-hour breaking it into smaller pieces. There was a lot of wood around, from low, dead bushes and shrubs. I wanted enough to keep the fire going all night since the sun was setting and it was getting a little cold. I stood back and looked at my big pile of wood. It was pretty impressive, maybe more than I really needed. Better safe than sorry, I told myself. The last bits of sunlight were coming over the horizon as I lit the fire, making it crackle happily. I ate a couple of power bars for cold dinner, drank some water, and sat on the ground, looking up at the stars. It felt really peaceful. But that peaceful feeling didn't last very long. I heard the wind getting stronger before I felt it. It whistled between the rocks and bushes, swirling around me. It brought warmth, which was strange for the desert at night. But it also brought something else. I sniffed as the breeze made the flames in my campfire dance, and the stinky smell from earlier came back. It was hot and rotten, like a dead animal left out in the sun. I gagged and tried not to throw up my dinner. The campfire flared up as the wind hit it, throwing sparks into the sky. I watched them go up, bright orange against the black night, almost blending in with the stars. When the sparks burned out, the wind calmed down, and the flames got smaller. The terrible smell was still there, but not as strong. Once the light from the fire died down, everything got a lot darker. I looked around, feeling a shiver. I suddenly realized how dark it was. I looked up at the sky and wished I hadn't picked a night without the moon for my hike. Then, I looked back at the fire and stopped. Something wasn't right. I blinked really hard and looked up at the sky. The stars, they were gone. One moment they were there, and the next, they just disappeared. It felt like the wind blew them out, like candles. There was nothing above me, just sudden darkness all around. It seemed to squeeze against the light from my little campfire. What the heck? I said, looking around. The air didn't get colder. It was still cold but not freezing, but a cold, uneasy feeling crept over me. I shivered and added a couple of branches to the fire. Then, I closed my jacket and zipped it up. Earlier, I could vaguely see bushes and rocks in the starlight, but now, I couldn't see anything. The horizon was gone, and the sky blended with where I knew the distant mountains were. It was so dark, and I couldn't see anything in the darkness closing in around me. I grabbed my backpack, took out my phone, and turned on the flashlight app. The phone's light shone brightly on the ground, but then it flickered and turned off. The phone shut down by itself. I pressed the power button again, but the screen stayed black. Oh no, I thought, putting my phone back in my backpack and reaching for my keys. I found a small flashlight on my keyring and turned it on. It flickered and went out immediately. I hit it a couple of times, but it didn't work. Feeling frustrated, I put my keys and phone back in my backpack. I looked around, feeling uneasy and shivering. It was super dark. I could only see about 20 feet on each side of the campfire. It was like the light was being pushed back. I could only hear the crackling of the fire. The wind had stopped. The terrible smell was still there, like something dead nearby. And then, I heard a weird noise, like someone clearing their throat, a thick, wet "heh." My stomach dropped, and I held my breath for a moment. I wasn't alone. I looked where the noise came from and saw a small flash in the dark, and then another. A shiver ran up my neck when I realized something was out there, just beyond the campfire's light, watching me. I remembered my sister's little dog, how it looked at me from a dark room down the hall while I was in a bright room. I couldn't see the dog, but I knew it was there from the way its eyes reflected light, little yellow dots in the dark, about a foot off the ground. What I saw was like that, but the eyes were 6 feet off the ground, too tall for a coyote or even a mountain lion. I tried to control my fear, telling it to go away. "Yeah. Get out of here," I yelled, standing and waving my arms. But it didn't leave. Instead, the ice lowered a bit, like it was lowering its head. I slowly moved to keep the campfire between us, and it moved too. I kept going around the fire, and it followed. I stopped and stared, and it stared back. Something else was weird. My feet made noise on the gravel, but it made no sound as it moved. The darkness hid most of it, and all I could see were the eyes and a slightly darker shape in the blackness. Crouching down, I grabbed a rock and threw it where I saw the eye flashes. The rock sailed through the air, and I lost sight of it in the dark. But I was sure my aim was good. It didn't hit anything, just made a crunch as it fell to the gravel and rolled away. The flashes in the dark went up and down a little. Whatever it wasn't scared of me, and it seemed to be coming closer. Very slowly, I reached for the rifle case, unzipped it, and took out my little .22 rifle. I pulled the bolt back and forth, loading a round. As I did, the thing moved again, the eyes coming back and a bit lower, like it was getting ready to pounce, like a cat. I moved my thumb to turn off the safety, pulled the stock tight against my shoulder, and aimed where I thought the thing's body would be, just a bit more than a foot below the eyes. "Don't make me use this," I yelled. "Just go away." I heard a wet growling sound, like a dog chewing food, and squeezed the trigger. Crack. The sound from my little rifle was really loud, breaking the quiet of the night. I lowered it a bit and looked over the barrel at the thing. It didn't move at all, stayed right there, ready to pounce. But there was no way I missed it, not at this range. I thought frantically, work the bolt back, get another round, re-aim, squeeze the trigger, crack, work the bolt, aim, squeeze the trigger, crack, again, crack, again, crack, again. Click. The hammer on my rifle came down, but there was no bullet in the chamber. I was out of ammo. I only had one 5-round magazine, and I didn't bring any more. I didn't think I'd need them. The thing moved a bit, growling again. The glow from its eyes in the firelight vanished, and I couldn't see its shape anymore. My hands shook as I lowered the rifle, holding onto the still warm barrel like a club. I was ready to swing the stock at whatever that thing was. Suddenly, something hit me in the back with a thump. I screamed, spun around, and swung the rifle like a bat, but it whooshed through the air, hitting nothing. I stepped back, breathing hard, and saw that familiar glint in the dark, just beyond where the fire's light reached. It got behind me so fast, and I didn't hear it move. But what hit me? I looked down and found a hiking boot at my feet. I looked back up at the thing. It hadn't moved, just watched me. I looked at the boot, which was in pretty bad shape, torn fabric and covered in reddish-brown mud. Then I realized, stooping to pick it up, it was caked in dry blood. My head spun, and my nerves felt like they were on fire. The back of my neck prickled, and my skin got all goosebumpy. I found myself on one knee, breathing heavy, mumbling, "Oh, no! Oh, no!" I looked back at the thing, which still hadn't moved. I stood up and screamed, "What deal you want with me?" It didn't answer. I dropped the boot. I jumped when a branch in the fire made a small pop, but then I got an idea. I moved closer to the fire, found a branch with only one end burning, pulled it out, and turned to face the thing. It growled as I held up the branch, turning more into a snarl as I threw it towards it. The flaming stick lit up the night as it flew towards the thing, and I got a better look at it for a second. A scary thrill went through me before it scurried away from the light. It was big as a bear, but not as heavy looking. It was slim, not bulky, and so dark that it kind of melted into the darkness. It had 4 long legs attached to a short body, but it didn't use all 4 when it moved. Instead, it used the front ones like arms to push itself up on its back legs. Then, it danced away crazily on those while its whole body jerked from side to side. It was really tall, maybe 8 feet high when it stood on its back legs, and it never seemed to stand up straight. The things that sparkled in the firelight looked like its eyes. I caught a quick glimpse of its face, and it made me take a step back in horror. It almost looked human, but all wrong, like if you took a person's face and pulled it forward, making it long, like a horse's head. But the mouth wasn't small like a horse's, It stretched all the way back to where the face met the rest of the head. The mouth was full of too many rotten-looking teeth, some stained red. I think my legs gave out then. I found myself sitting on the ground, hugging my knees and rocking back and forth. What in the world was that thing, and why did it want me? The boot covered in blood didn't make me feel hopeful that it was friendly. My hand was shaking as I grabbed more sticks from the woodpile to feed the campfire. That thing hadn't come into the light, and it moved away when the fire got close. I silently thanked myself for bringing in so much wood. The ice stopped moving, and it seemed like the thing was okay just sitting in the dark, staring at me. I stared back, trying to figure out what to do. We stayed like that for a while, just looking at each other. Somewhere not too far away, a coyote howled. The ice turned, bobbing slightly towards the howl. Was it sniffing the air? It turned back to me and grunted or made some dissatisfied noise. Then, it turned away, and I saw a faint outline moving into the dark towards the howls. It disappeared within seconds, and its stench faded away too. I sat frozen for a moment, then jumped up, scrambling for grip on the loose gravel as I stood. I grabbed my pack and swung it onto one shoulder, picked up my rifle, and swung that by its strap onto the other shoulder. I hesitated, not sure what to do. Should I risk it? I clenched my jaw, trying to push down the fear. I lifted one foot and took a single step away from the fire. The gravel crunched loudly underfoot, breaking the silence. I looked around, muscles tense, but saw no sign of the thing. I took another step, the gravel crunched again, and still no sign of it. I relaxed a bit, took a deep breath, and started walking quickly toward the trail. Once I hit it, I could turn right, and I was pretty sure I could find my way back to the parking lot, even in the dark. I had only taken a few quick steps when I suddenly stopped, completely frozen. The awful smell was back, making me feel sick. My heart was racing, and I looked slightly to the left, where I saw that glint in the dark. The fire's light had gotten dimmer as I moved away, but I was still close enough to see the reflection of the flames in its eyes. A sound rumbled from the darkness, a growl maybe? I slowly moved my front foot backward, heading back toward the fire. I never took my eyes off where it seemed to be in the dark. I reached the fireside and took off my pack and rifle, putting them on the ground and sitting down next to them. As I did, I heard the coyote howl again. The thing grunted and then faded into the darkness, turning away from me. What was I going to do? It felt like the thing was playing with me, but I wasn't going to risk running for it again. I didn't want it to catch me in the dark. The darkness had messed up my phone and flashlight, and any flaming torch I took from the fire would burn out before I reached my car. I still had my lighter, but it wouldn't make enough of a difference to keep it away. The coyote howled again, but the howl turned into a snarl. I listened closely as the snarls became painful yelps and then stopped, replaced by the sounds of something snapping, crunching, and splattering. I took deep breaths, trying to slow down my pounding heart. Nothing. Once again, the only sound I heard was the crackling of the fire. I closed my eyes, trying to listen harder, and screamed when something hit the ground next to me. I scrambled backward on my butt, expecting it to jump up and grab me. After a few yards, I stopped scrambling and just sat there, breathing heavily, staring at the messy pile of gray fur and red gore in front of me. It was the coyote. Or what was left of it. It was a mess. Every bone in its body seemed smashed, and its front legs were completely missing, torn away rather than cleanly cut or bitten off. Worst of all, its head faced the wrong way, twisted around until it was entirely backward. Blood dripped from its open mouth, making soft splat sounds as it hit the dusty gravel. I shuddered, hugging my knees tight and rocking back and forth slightly. This must have been the coyote I heard howling earlier, the one the thing went after. Oh no, I stood up, looking around in a panic. Where was it now? I turned in a circle, scanning the dark. There, on the other side of the fire, Just beyond the border where the light ended, I saw that familiar reflective yellow double flash. It was still watching me. "Fuck you!" I screamed at it. I walked over to the dead coyote, grabbed it by its still warm tail, and swung it around, tossing it away from the fire toward the thing. It landed not too far away from where the light ended. The thing didn't move. I struggled to control my breathing, kicking dust over the small patch of blood that had pooled where the coyote lay. My hands were sticky with blood too. I grabbed my water and rinsed them off, wiping them on my pants to dry. I woke up suddenly, sitting straight up as a weird sound echoed behind me. It was a wet, throaty "ha." Oh no, I had fallen asleep. The fire had almost gone out, just some embers left, giving off a faint glow. I could see that the thing had gotten much closer while I was sleeping. I must have dozed off for an hour or more. Jumping to my feet, I grabbed some branches from the pile and threw them into the dying fire. Then, I got on my hands and knees, desperately blowing on the embers to bring the fire back to life. The light flared up, and I saw it sitting way too close, squatted like a dog with its long back legs folded up and arms extended down to the ground, holding its torso upright. The light glinted from its eyes as it shifted its head to stare at me again. It hissed and pushed itself backward, retreating from the light. As I lost sight of it in the darkness, I heard that wet sound again, like a long tongue smacking against lips. I shuddered. I got a better look at its eyes this time, hungry and maybe in pain. But there was intelligence there, not entirely like an animal. It went back to looking at me, making growling and grunting noises that grew louder and more desperate. It circled the fire, eyes disappearing and reappearing elsewhere in the dark, growling from a distance but never coming into the firelight. I didn't say anything, I just fed the fire, hoping my stock of firewood would last a little longer. I had brought in a lot, but it was getting less by now. Finally, the thing made a new sound I hadn't heard before, a higher-pitched hiss. It looked up at the sky and then back at me, making a disgusted noise before turning away. The wind picked up, carrying its stench, and all of a sudden, it just disappeared. As the thing left, the smell and the dark feeling went away too, and I could see clearly around me again. The sky had that deep, dark blue color you see before sunrise, with a few pinpricks of light that could only be stars. It got lighter until there it was, the sun peeking up over the horizon. I had never been happier to see the light of day. I waited for another hour and a half until the sun was high in the sky and things were warming up before I dared to move. I picked up my things and got out of there, shuddering as I passed the remains of the coyote, just a bloody patch of gray fur and broken bones. I jogged the whole time, never stopping or looking behind me. Every time I slowed, I heard the wind whistle, and I caught a whiff of something foul, so I picked up the pace again. Hours later, almost ready to drop, I saw it, the start of the trail. I could see down to the parking lot. Without stopping my jog, I reached back, pulled my backpack off, and held it in one hand, awkwardly cradling the gun case in my other arm as I searched for my car keys. I almost tripped as the hard trail turned into the gravel of the parking lot, but managed to keep my footing as I hurried towards the car. I struggled with the keys for what felt like forever, then flung open the car door, tossed my things inside, and plopped into the driver's seat, gripping the wheel really tight. I checked myself in the rearview mirror and was surprised at the tired, wide-eyed person staring back. My face had streaks of clear skin where I'd been crying with relief since I saw the end of the trail. Looking back at the trail, I saw the dust swirl as the wind picked up again. I quickly shoved the keys into the ignition, revved the engine, threw the car into gear, and zoomed onto the road. It wasn't until I hit the main highway that my heart stopped racing, and my breathing went back to normal. A few hours later, I was definitely not going the speed limit. I was home, doors locked, sunlight streaming through the windows. My phone finally turned on when I plugged it in. "Now you work." So I messaged my sister to let her know I was okay. A day later, I called the park service and said I had encountered mountain lions on the trail, and they removed the area from their website. Not many people went there anyway, they told me. I didn't mention the abandoned car or the bloody boot and kept the real story to myself. Who would believe me anyway? There was no point in putting anyone else in danger. Afterwards, I tried reading about some local stories, but I quickly stopped. I found something that made me really scared just by reading the description. I think I know what that thing was, but I decided not to look into it more and just try to forget about it. It hasn't really worked. Every time I go into a dark room, I get scared and fumble around for a light switch. I don't hike much anymore. If I do go, I stick to well-used trails and never spend the night outside. I even got my job moved to a place far away from the desert, where it snows. My scary encounter left me with a lot of questions, but one question scares me the most, and I'm not sure I want to know the answer. If that thing I read about is real, then what else is real and hiding out there in the dark? Have you ever had a spooky experience in the wilderness or on a hike? What do you think the mysterious creature in the story could be? Would you have stayed and faced the creature or run away like the narrator? How do you feel about exploring unfamiliar, less traveled trails? Do you believe in supernatural creatures hiding in the dark? If you enjoy thrilling stories and want more mysterious adventures, don't forget to subscribe for more exciting tales.